Part 6 of Jerusalem, the Emanation of the Giant Albion by William Blake, edited and read by Tim Bruce. Then the spectre drew valour into his bosom magnificent, terrific, glittering with precious stones and gold, with garments of blood and fire. He wept in deadly wrath of the spectre, in self-contradicting agony, crimson with wrath and green with jealousy, dazzling with love and jealousy immingled, and the purple of the violet darkened deep over the plough of nations, thundering in the hand of Albion's spectre. A dark hermaphrodite, they stood frowning upon London's river, and the distaff and spindle in the hands of valour with the flax of human miseries turned fierce with the lives of men along the valley, as Reuben fled before the daughters of Albion, taxing the nations. Derby Peak yawned a horrid chasm at the cries of Gwendolen, and at the stamping feet of Regan, upon the flaming treadles of her loom that drop with crimson gore with the loves of Albion and Canaan, opening along the valley of Rephaim, weaving over the caves of Machpelah, to decide two worlds with a great decision, a world of mercy and a world of justice, the world of mercy for salvation, to cast Louva into the wrath and Albion into the pity, in the two countries of humanity and in the four regions. For in the depths of Albion's bosom, in the eastern heaven, they sound the clarions strong. They chain the howling captives. They cast the lots into the helmet. They give the oath of blood in Lambeth. They vote the death of Louva, and they nailed him to Albion's tree in Bath. They stained him with poisonous blue. They inwove him in cruel roots to die a death of 6,000 years bound round with vegetation. The sun was black, and the moon rolled a useless globe through Britain. Then left the sons of Urizen the plough and harrow, the loom, the hammer and the chisel, and the rule and the compasses. From London fleeing, they forged the sword on Cheviot, the chariot of war, and the battle-axe, the trumpet fitted to mortal battle, and the flute of summer in Annandale. And all the arts of life they changed into the arts of death in Albion. The hourglass contend because its simple workmanship was like the workmanship of the ploughman, and the water wheel that raises water into cisterns, broken and burned with fire, because its workmanship was like the workmanship of the shepherd. And in their stead intricate wheels invented, wheel without wheel, to perplex youth in their outgoings, and to bind to labours in Albion of day and night the myriads of eternity, that they may grind and polish brass and iron, hour after hour, laborious task, kept ignorant of its use, that they might spend the days of wisdom in sorrowful drudgery, to obtain a scanty pittance of bread, in ignorance to view a small portion and think that all, and call it demonstration, blind to all the simple rules of life. Now the battle rages round thy tender limbs, O valour. Now smile among thy bitter tears. Now put on all thy beauty. Is not the wound of the sword sweet, and the broken bone delightful? Wilt thou now smile among the scythes when the wounded groan in the field? We were carried away in thousands from London, and in tens of thousands from Westminster and Marylebone, in ships closed up, chained hand and foot, compelled to fight under the iron whips of our captains, fearing our officers more than our enemy. Lift up thy blue eyes, valour, and put on thy sapphire shoes. O melancholy Magdalene, behold the morning over Malden break. Gird on thy flaming zone, descend into the sepulchre of Canterbury. Scatter the blood from thy golden brow, the tears from thy silver locks. Shake off the waters from thy wings, and the dust from thy white garments. Remember all thy feigned terrors on the secret couch of Lambeth's Vale, when the sun rose in glowing morn with arms of mighty hosts marching to battle, which was wont to rise with Urizen's harps, girt as a sower with his seed to scatter life abroad over Albion. Arise, O valour! Bring the bow of Urizen, bring the swift arrows of light. How rage the golden horses of Urizen, compelled to the chariot of love, compelled to leave the plough to the ox, to snuff up the winds of desolation, to trample the cornfields in boastful neighings. This is no gentle harp, this is no warbling brook, nor shadow of a myrtle tree, but blood and wounds and dismal cries and shadows of the oak, and hearts laid open to the light by the broad grisly sword, and bowels hid in hammered steel ripped quivering on the ground. Call forth thy smiles of soft deceit, call forth thy cloudy tears. We hear thy sighs in trumpet shrill, when morn shall blood renew. So sang the spectre sons of Albion round Louva's stone of trial, mocking and deriding at the writhings of their victim on Salisbury, drinking his emanation in intoxicating bliss, rejoicing in giant dance. For a spectre has no emanation, but what he imbibes from deceiving a victim. Then he becomes her priest, and she his tabernacle, and his oak grove, till the victim rend the woven veil in the end of his sleep when Jesus calls him from his grave. Howling, the victims on the druid altars yield their souls to the stern warriors. Lovely sport the daughters round their victims, drinking their lives in sweet intoxication. Hence arose from Bath soft deluding odours, in spiral volutions intricately winding over Albion's mountains, a feminine, indefinite, cruel delusion. Astonished, terrified, and in pain and torment, sudden they behold their own parent, the emanation of their murdered enemy, become their emanation, and their temple and tabernacle. They knew not this Valour was their beloved mother Valour, Albion's wife. Terrified at the sight of the victim, at his distorted sinews, the tremblings of Valour vibrate through the limbs of Albion's sons, while they rejoice over Louva in mockery and bitter scorn. Sudden, they become like what they behold, in howlings and deadly pain. Spasms smite their features, sinews and limbs, pale they look on one another. They turn, contorted, their iron necks bend unwilling towards Louva. Their lips tremble, their muscular fibres are cramped and smitten. They become like what they behold. Yet immense in strength and power, in awful pomp and gold, in all the precious unhewn stones of Eden, they build a stupendous building on the plain of Salisbury, with chains of rocks round London stone, of reasonings, of unhewn demonstrations in labyrinthine arches, mighty Urizen the architect, through which the heavens might revolve and eternity be bound in their chain. Labour unparalleled, a wondrous rocky world of cruel destiny, rocks piled on rocks reaching the stars, stretching from pole to pole. The building is natural religion, and its altars natural morality, a building of eternal death, whose proportions are eternal despair. Here Valour stood, turning the iron spindle of destruction from heaven to earth, howling, invisible, but not invisible. Her two covering cherubs afterwards named Voltaire and Rousseau. Two frowning rocks on each side of the cove and stone of torture, frozen sons of the feminine tabernacle of Bacon, Newton, and Locke. For Louva is France, the victim of the spectres of Albion. Los beheld in terror. He poured his loud storms on the furnaces. The daughters of Albion, clothed in garments of needlework, strip them off from their shoulders and bosoms. They lay aside their garments. They sit naked upon the stone of trial. The knife of flint passes over the howling victim. His blood gushes and stains the fair side of the fair daughters of Albion. They put aside his curls. They divide his 7 locks upon his forehead. They bind his forehead with thorns of iron. They put into his hand a reed. They mock, saying, Behold, the king of Canaan, whose are 700 chariots of iron. They take off his vesture whole with their knives of flint, where they cut asunder his inner garments, searching with their cruel fingers for his heart. And there they enter in pomp, in many tears, and there they erect a temple and an altar. They pour cold water on his brain in front, to cause lids to grow over his eyes in veils of tears, and caverns to freeze over his nostrils, while they feed his tongue from cups and dishes of painted clay. Glowing with beauty and cruelty, they obscure the sun and the moon. No eye can look upon them. And alas, at the sight of the victim, and at sight of those who are smitten, all who see become what they behold. Their eyes are covered with veils of tears, and their nostrils and tongues shrunk up, their ear bent outwards. As their victims, so are they, in the pangs of unconquerable fear, amidst delights of revenge, earth-shaking. And as their eye and ear shrunk, the heavens shrunk away. The divine vision became first a burning flame, and then a column of fire, then an awful fiery wheel surrounding earth and heaven, and then a globe of blood, wandering distant in an unknown night. Afar into the unknown night the mountains fled away. 6 months of mortality, a summer, and 6 months of mortality, a winter. The human form began to be altered by the daughters of Albion, and the perceptions to be dissipated into the indefinite, becoming a mighty Polypus named Albion's tree. They tie the veins and nerves into 2 knots, and the seed into a double knot. They look forth. The sun is shrunk, the heavens are shrunk, away into the far remote, and the trees and mountains withered into indefinite cloudy shadows in darkness and separation. By invisible hatreds adjoined, they seem remote and separate from each other, and yet are a mighty Polypus in the deep. As the mistletoe grows on the oak, so Albion's tree on eternity. Lo, he who will not commingle in love must be adjoined by hate. They look forth from Stonehenge, from the cove round London Stone. They look on one another. The mountain calls out to the mountain. Plinlimmon shrunk away. Snowdon trembled. The mountains of Wales and Scotland beheld a descending war, the routed flying. Red run the streams of Albion. Thames is drunk with blood. As Gwendolen cast the shuttle of war, as Campbell returned the beam. The Humber and the Severn are drunk with the blood of the slain. London feels his brain cut round. Edinburgh's heart is circumscribed. York and Lincoln hide among the flocks because of the grinding knife. Worcester and Hereford, Oxford and Cambridge reel and stagger, overwearied with howling. Wales and Scotland alone sustain the fight. The inhabitants are sick to death. They labour to divide into days and nights the uncertain periods, and into weeks and months. In vain they send the dove and raven, and in vain the serpent over the mountains, and in vain the eagle and lion over the fourfold wilderness. They return not, but generate in rocky places desolate. They return not, but build a habitation separate from man. The sun forgets his course like a drunken man. He hesitates upon Cheselden hills, thinking to sleep on the Severn. In vain he is hurried afar into an unknown night. He bleeds in torrents of blood as he rolls through heaven above. He chokes up the paths of the sky. The moon is leprous as snow, trembling and descending down, seeking to rest upon high Mona, scattering her leprous snows in flakes of disease over Albion. The stars flee remote, the heaven is iron, the earth is sulphur, and all the mountains and hills shrink up like a withering gourd, as the senses of men shrink together under the knife of flint, in the hands of Albion's daughters, among the druid temples, by those who drink their blood and the blood of their covenant. And the 12 daughters of Albion, united in Rahab and Tirzah, a double female, and they drew out from the rocky stones fibres of life to weave. For every female is a golden loom. The rocks are opaque hardnesses covering all vegetated things. And as they wove and cut from the looms in various divisions stretching over Europe and Asia from Ireland to Japan, they divided into many lovely daughters to be counterparts to those they wove. For when they wove a male, they divided into a female to the woven male. In opaque hardness they cut the fibres from the rocks. Groaning in pain they weave, calling the rocks atomic origins of existence, denying eternity by the atheistical Epicurean philosophy of Albion's tree. Such are the feminine and masculine when separated from man. They call the rocks parents of men, and adore the frowning chaos, dancing around in howling pain, clothed in the bloody veil, hiding Albion's sons within the veil, closing Jerusalem's sons without, to feed with their souls the spectres of Albion, ashamed to give love openly to the piteous and merciful man, counting him an imbecile mockery. But the warrior they adore, and his revenge cherish with the blood of the innocent. They drink up Dan and Gad, to feed with milk Schofield and Cotope. They strip off Joseph's coat and dip it in the blood of battle. Tirzah sits weeping to hear the shrieks of the dying. Her knife of flint is in her hand. She passes it over the howling victim. The daughters weave their work in loud cries over the rock of Horeb, still eyeing Albion's cliffs, eagerly seizing and twisting the threads of valor, and Jerusalem, running from mountain to mountain over the whole earth. Loud the warriors rage in Beth Peor, beneath the iron whips of their captains and consecrated banners. Loud the sun and moon rage in the conflict. Loud the stars shout in the night of battle, and their spears grow to their hands with blood, weaving the deaths of the mighty into a tabernacle for Rahab and Tirzah, till the great Polypus of generation covered the earth. In Verulam the Polypus's head, winding around his bulk through Rochester and Chichester and Exeter and Salisbury to Bristol, and his heart beat strong on Salisbury plain, shooting out fibres round the earth through Gaul and Italy and Greece, and along the sea of Rephaim, into Judea, to Sodom and Gomorrah, thence to India, China, and Japan. The 12 daughters in Rahab and Tirzah have circumscribed the brain beneath, and pierced it through the midst with a golden pin. Blood hath stained her fair side beneath her bosom. "O thou poor human form," said she, "O thou poor child of woe, why wilt thou wander away from Tirzah? Why me compel to bind thee? If thou dost go away from me, I shall consume upon these rocks. These fibres of thine eyes that used to beam in distant heavens away from me, I have bound down with a hot iron. These nostrils that expanded with delight in morning skies, I have bent downward with lead, melted in my roaring furnaces of affliction, of love, of sweet despair, of torment unendurable. My soul is 7 furnaces, incessant roars the bellows upon my terribly flaming heart. The molten metal runs in channels through my fiery limbs. O love, O pity, O fear, O pain, O the pangs, the bitter pangs of love forsaken! Ephraim was a wilderness of joy where all my wild beasts ran. The river Cana wandered by my sweet Manasseh's side to see the boy spring into heaven sounding from my sight. Go, Noah, fetch the girdle of strong brass, heat it red hot, press it around the loins of this ever-expanding cruelty. Shriek not so, my only love. I refuse thy joys. I drink thy shrieks because hand and hile are cruel and obdurate to me. O Schofield, why art thou cruel? Lo, Joseph is thine, to make you one, to weave you both in the same mantle of skin. Bind him down, sisters, bind him down on Ebal, mount of cursing. Mala, come forth from Lebanon, and Hogla from Mount Sinai. Come, circumscribe this tongue of sweets, and with a screw of iron fasten this ear into the rock. Milcah, the task is thine. Weep not so, sisters, weep not so. Our life depends on this, or mercy and truth are fled away from Shechem and Mount Gilead, unless my beloved is bound upon the stems of vegetation. And thus the warriors cry in the hot day of victory in songs. Look, the beautiful daughter of Albion sits naked upon the stone, her panting victim beside her. Her heart is drunk with blood, though her brain is not drunk with wine. She goes forth from Albion in pride of beauty, in cruelty of holiness, in the brightness of her tabernacle, and her ark and secret place. The beautiful daughter of Albion delights the eyes of the kings. Their hearts and the hearts of their warriors glow hot before Thor and Frigga. O Moloch, O Chemosh, O Bacchus, O Venus, O double god of generation! The heavens are cut like a mantle around from the cliffs of Albion across Europe, across Africa. In howlings and deadly war, a sheet and veil and curtain of blood is let down from heaven across the hills of Ephraim, and down Mount Olivet to the valley of the Jebusite. Moloch rejoices in heaven. He sees the 12 daughters naked upon the 12 stones, themselves condensing to rocks and into the ribs of man. Lo, they shoot forth in tender nerves across Europe and Asia. Lo, they rest upon the tribes where their panting victims lie. Moloch rushes into the kings in love to the beautiful daughters, but they frown and delight in cruelty, refusing all other joy. Bring your offerings, your first-begotten, pampered with milk and blood, your firstborn of 7 years old, be they males or females, to the beautiful daughters of Albion. They sport before the kings, clothed in the skin of the victim. Blood, human blood, is the life and delightful food of the warrior. The well-fed warrior's flesh of him who is slain in war fills the valleys of Ephraim, with breeding women walking in pride and bringing forth under green trees with pleasure, without pain, for their food is blood of the captive. Moloch rejoices through the land from Havilah to Shur. He rejoices in moral law and its severe penalties. Loud Shaddai and Jehovah thunder above when they see the 12 panting victims on the 12 stones of power and the beautiful daughters of Albion. If you dare rend their veil with your spear, you are healed of love. From the hills of Camberwell and Wimbledon, from the valleys of Walton and Esher, from Stonehenge and from Malden's Cove, Jerusalem's pillars fall in the rendings of fierce war. Over France and Germany, upon the Rhine and Danube, Reuben and Benjamin flee. They hide in the valley of Rephaim. Why trembles the warrior's limbs when he beholds thy beauty spotted with victims' blood? By the fires of thy secret tabernacle, and thy ark and holy place, at thy frowns, at thy dire revenge, smitten as Uzzah of old, his armour is softened, his spear and sword faint in his hand, from Albion across great Tartary. O beautiful daughter of Albion, cruelty is thy delight. O virgin of terrible eyes, who dwellest by valleys of springs, beneath the mountains of Lebanon, in the city of Rahab, in Hamath, taught to touch the harp, to dance in the circle of warriors before the kings of Canaan, to cut the flesh from the victim, to roast the flesh in fire, to examine the infant's limbs in cruelties of holiness, to refuse the joys of love, to bring the spies from Egypt, to raise jealousy in the bosoms of the 12 kings of Canaan, then to let the spies depart to Meribah Kadesh, to the place of the Amalekite. I am drunk with unsatiated love. I must rush again to war, for the virgin has frowned and refused. Sometimes I curse, and sometimes bless thy fascinating beauty. Once man was occupied in intellectual pleasures and energies, but now my soul is harrowed with grief and fear and love and desire, and now I hate, and now I love, and intellect is no more. There is no time for anything but the torments of love and desire. The feminine and masculine shadows, soft, mild, and ever-varying in beauty, are shadows now no more, but rocks in Horeb. Then all the males combined into one male, and everyone became a ravening, eating cancer growing in the female, a polypus of roots, of reasoning, doubt, despair, and death, going forth and returning from Albion's rocks to Canaan, devouring Jerusalem from every nation of the earth. Envying stood the enormous form at variance with itself, in all its members, in eternal torment of love and jealousy, driven forth by Los time after time from Albion's cliffy shore, drawing the free loves of Jerusalem into infernal bondage, that they might be born in contentions of chastity, and in deadly hate between Leah and Rachel, daughters of deceit and fraud, bearing the images of various species of contention, and jealousy, and abhorrence, and revenge, and deadly murder, till they refuse liberty to the male, and not like Beulah, where every female delights to give her maiden to her husband. The female searches sea and land for gratifications to the male genius, who in return clothes her in gems and gold, and feeds her with the food of Eden. Hence all her beauty beams. She creates at her will a little moony night and silence, with spaces of sweet gardens and a tent of elegant beauty, closed in by a sandy desert, and a night of stars shining, and a little tender moon and hovering angels on the wing. And the male gives a time and revolution to her space, till the time of love is past in ever-varying delights. For all things exist in the human imagination, and thence in Beulah they are stolen by secret amorous theft, till they have had punishment enough to make them commit crimes. Hence rose the tabernacle in the wilderness, and all its offerings from male and female loves in Beulah and their jealousies. But no one can consummate female bliss in Los's world without becoming a generated mortal, a vegetating death. And now the spectres of the dead awake in Beulah. All the jealousies become murderous, uniting together in Rahab, a religion of chastity, forming a commerce to sell loves with moral law, an equal balance, not going down with decision. Therefore the male, severe and cruel, filled with stern revenge, mutual hate returns, and mutual deceit, and mutual fear. Hence the infernal veil grows in the disobedient female, which Jesus rends, and the whole Druid law removes away from the inner sanctuary. A false holiness hid within the centre, for the sanctuary of Eden is in the camp, in the outline, in the circumference, and every minute particular, is holy. Embraces are comminglings from the head even to the feet, and not a pompous high priest entering by a secret place. Jerusalem pined in her inmost soul over wandering Reuben, as she slept in Beulah's night, hid by the daughters of Beulah. And this the form of mighty hand sitting on Albion's cliffs, before the face of Albion, a mighty, threatening form, his bosom wide and shoulders huge, overspreading, wondrous, bare 3 strong, sinewy necks, and 3 awful, terrible heads, 3 brains in contradictory counsel brooding incessantly, neither daring to put in act its counsels, fearing each other, therefore rejecting ideas as nothing, and holding all wisdom to consist in the agreements and disagreements of ideas, plotting to devour Albion's body of humanity and love. Such form the aggregate of the 12 sons of Albion took, and such their appearance when combined. But often, by birth pangs and loud groans, they divide to 12. The key bones and the chest, dividing in pain, disclose a hideous orifice. Thence issuing, the giant brood arise, as the smoke of the furnace, shaking the rocks from sea to sea. And there they combine into 3 forms named Bacon, Newton, and Locke. In the oak groves of Albion, which overspread all the earth, imputing sin and righteousness to individuals, Rahab sat, deep within him hid, his feminine power unrevealed, brooding abstract philosophy to destroy imagination, the divine humanity, a 3-fold wonder, feminine, most beautiful, 3-fold each within other. On her white marble and even neck, her heart enorbed and bona fide, with locks of shadowing modesty, shining over her beautiful female features, soft, flourishing in beauty, beams mild, all love and all perfection, that when the lips receive a kiss from gods or men, a 3-fold kiss returns from the pressed loveliness. So her whole immortal form 3-fold, 3-fold embrace returns, consuming lives of gods and men, in fires of beauty melting them as gold and silver in the furnace. Her brain enlabyrinths the whole heaven of her bosom and loins, to put in act what her heart wills. Oh, who can withstand her power? Her name is Valor in eternity. In time, her name is Rahab. The starry heavens, all were fled from the mighty limbs of Albion, and above Albion's land was seen the heavenly Canaan, as the substance is to the shadow, and above Albion's 12 sons were seen Jerusalem's sons, and all the 12 tribes spreading over Albion. As the soul is to the body, so Jerusalem's sons are to the sons of Albion, and Jerusalem is Albion's emanation. What is above is within, for everything in eternity is translucent. The circumference is within, without is formed the selfish centre, and the circumference still expands going forward to eternity, and the centre has eternal states. These states we now explore, and these the names of Albion's 12 sons, and of his 12 daughters with their districts. Hand dwelt in Selsey, and had Sussex and Surrey and Kent and Middlesex, all their rivers and all their hills of flocks and herds, their villages, towns, cities, seaports, temples, sublime cathedrals. All were his friends, and their sons and daughters intermarry in Beulah. For all are men in eternity. Rivers, mountains, cities, villages, all are human. And when you enter into their bosoms, you walk in heavens and earths, as in your bosom you bear your heaven and earth, and all you behold. Though it appears without, it is within, in your imagination, of which this world of mortality is but a shadow. Hyle dwelt in Winchester, comprehending Hants, Dorset, Devon, Cornwall, their villages, cities, seaports, their cornfields and gardens spacious, palaces, rivers and mountains. And between Hand and Hyle arose Gwendolen and Campbell, who is Boadicea. They go abroad and return like lovely beams of light from the mingled affections of the brothers. The inhabitants of the whole earth rejoice in their beautiful light. Cockburn dwelt in Bath, Somerset, Wiltshire, Gloucestershire, obeyed his awful voice. Ignoge is his lovely emanation. She adjoined with Quantock's children. Soon lovely Cordelia arose. Quantock forgave, and joyed over South Wales and all its mountains. Peachy had North Wales, Shropshire, Cheshire, and the Isle of Man. His emanation is Mehechtebel, terrible and lovely upon the mountains. Brereton had Yorkshire, Durham, Westmoreland, and his emanation is Regan. She adjoined to Slade, and produced Goneril, far beaming. Slade had Lincoln, Stafford, Derby, Nottingham, and his lovely emanation Goneril rejoices over hills and rocks and woods and rivers. Hutton had Warwick, Northampton, Bedford, Buckingham, Leicester, and Berkshire, and his emanation is Gwynfryd beautiful. Schofield had Ely, Rutland, Cambridge, Huntingdon, Norfolk, Suffolk, Hertford, and Essex, and his emanation is Guinevere beautiful. She beams towards the east, all kinds of precious stones and pearl, with instruments of music in holy Jerusalem. Cox had Oxford, Warwick, Wiltshire. His emanation is Estrild, joined with Cordelia. She shines southward over the Atlantic. Cotope had Hereford, Stafford, Worcester, and his emanation is Sabrina, joined with Mehechtebel. She shines west over America. Bowen had all Scotland, the Isles, Northumberland, and Cumberland. His emanation is Conwenna. She shines a triple form over the north, with pearly beams gorgeous and terrible. Jerusalem and Valor rejoice in Bowen and Conwenna. But the four sons of Jerusalem that never were generated are Rintra and Palamabron and Theotomon and Bromion. They dwell over the 4 provinces of Ireland in heavenly light, the 4 universities of Scotland, and in Oxford and Cambridge and Winchester. But now Albion is darkened, and Jerusalem lies in ruins above the mountains of Albion, above the head of Los. And Los shouted with ceaseless shoutings, and his tears poured down his immortal cheeks, rearing his hands to heaven for aid divine. But he spoke not to Albion, fearing lest Albion should turn his back against the divine vision, and fall over the precipice of eternal death. But he receded before Albion, and before Valor, weaving the veil with the iron shuttle of war among the rooted oaks of Albion, weeping and shouting to the Lord day and night, and his children wept round him as a flock, silent 7 days of eternity. And the 32 counties of the 4 provinces of Ireland are thus divided. The 4 counties are in the 4 camps: Munster, south in Reuben's Gate; Connaught, west in Joseph's Gate; Ulster, north in Dan's Gate; Leinster, east in Judah's Gate. For Albion in eternity has 16 gates among his pillars, but the 4 towards the west were walled up, and the 12 that front the 4 other points were turned 4 square by Los for Jerusalem's sake, and called the gates of Jerusalem, because 12 sons of Jerusalem fled successive through the gates. But the 4 sons of Jerusalem who fled not, but remained, are Rintra and Palamabron, and Theotomon and Bromion, the 4 that remain with Los to guard the western wall. And these 4 remain to guard the 4 walls of Jerusalem, whose foundations remain in the 32 counties of Ireland, and in 12 counties of Wales, and in the 40 counties of England, and in the 36 counties of Scotland. And the names of the 32 counties of Ireland are these: under Judah and Issachar and Zebulun are Louth, Longford, Eastmeath, Westmeath, Dublin, Kildare, King's County, Queen's County, Wicklow, Catherlough, Wexford, Kilkenny. And those under Reuben and Simeon and Levi are these: Waterford, Tipperary, Cork, Limerick, Kerry, Clare. And those under Ephraim, Manasseh, and Benjamin are these: Galway, Roscommon, Mayo, Sligo, Leitrim. And those under Dan, Asher, Naphtali are these: Donegal, Antrim, Tyrone, Fermanagh, Armagh, Londonderry, Down, Monaghan, Cavan. These are the land of Erin. All these centre in London, and in Golgonooza, from whence they are created continually, east and west, and north and south, and from them are created all the nations of the earth, Europe, and Asia, and Africa, and America, in fury fourfold, continually building, continually decaying because of love and jealousy. And 32 the nations to dwell in Jerusalem's gates. O come, ye nations, come, ye people, come up to Jerusalem. Return, Jerusalem, and dwell together as of old. Return, return, O Albion. Let Jerusalem o'erspread all nations as in the times of old. O Albion, awake! Reuben wanders, the nations wait for Jerusalem. They look up for the bride. France, Spain, Italy, Germany, Poland, Russia, Sweden, Turkey, Arabia, Palestine, Persia, Hindustan, China, Tartary, Siberia, Egypt, Libya, Ethiopia, Guinea, Caffraria, Negroland, Morocco, Congo, Zara, Canada, Greenland, Carolina, Mexico, Peru, Patagonia, Amazonia, Brazil. 32 nations, and under these 32 classes of islands in the ocean, all the nations, peoples, and tongues throughout all the earth. And the 4 gates of Los surround the universe within and without. And whatever is visible in the vegetable earth, the same is visible in the mundane shell reversed, in mountain and vale. And a son of Eden was set over each daughter of Beulah to guard in Albion's tomb the wondrous creation. And the 4-fold gate towards Beulah is to the south. Fenelon, Guion, Teresa, Whitefield, and Harvey guard that gate, with all the gentle souls who guide the great winepress of love. 4 precious stones that gate. Such are Cathedron's golden halls in the city of Golgonooza. And Los's furnaces howl loud, living, self-moving, lamenting with fury and despair, and they stretch from south to north through all the 4 points. Lo, the labourers at the furnaces, Rintra and Palamabron, Theotomon and Bromion, loud labouring with the innumerable multitudes of Golgonooza, round the anvils of death. But how they came forth from the furnaces, and how long, vast and severe the anguish ere they knew their father, were long to tell. And of the iron rollers, golden axle trees and yokes of brass, iron chains and braces, and the gold, silver, and brass, mingled or separate, for swords, arrows, cannons, mortars, the terrible ball, the wedge, the loud-sounding hammer of destruction, the sounding flail to thresh, the winnow to winnow kingdoms, the water-wheel and mill of many innumerable wheels resistless, over the 4-fold monarchy, from earth to the mundane shell, perusing Albion's tomb in the starry characters of Og and Anak, to create the lion and wolf, the bear, the tiger and ounce, to create the woolly lamb and downy fowl and scaly serpent, the summer, and winter, day and night, the sun and moon and stars, the tree, the plant, the flower, the rock, the stone, the metal of vegetative nature, by their hard restricting condensations. Where Louva's world of opaqueness grew to a period, it became a limit, a rocky hardness without form and void, accumulating without end. Here Los, who is of the Elohim, opens the furnaces of affliction in the Emanation, fixing the sexual into an ever-prolific generation, naming the limit of opaqueness, Satan, and the limit of contraction, Adam, who is Peleg and Joktan, and Esau and Jacob, and Saul and David. Voltaire insinuates that these limits are the cruel work of God, mocking the remover of limits and the resurrection of the dead, setting up kings in wrath, in holiness of natural religion, which Los with his mighty hammer demolishes time on time in miracles and wonders in the fourfold desert of Albion, permanently creating to be in time revealed and demolished. Satan, Cain, Tubal, Nimrod, Pharaoh, Priam, Bladud, Belin, Arthur, Alfred, the Norman conqueror, Richard, John, and all the kings and nobles of the earth and all their glories, these are created by Rahab and Tirzah in Ulro. But around these, to preserve them from eternal death, Los creates Adam, Noah, Abraham, Moses, Samuel, David, Ezekiel, dissipating the rocky forms of death by his thunderous hammer. As the pilgrim passes while the country permanent remains, so men pass on, but states remain permanent forever. The spectres of the dead howl round the porch of Los in the terrible family feuds of Albion's cities and villages, to devour the body of Albion, hungering and thirsting and ravening. The sons of Los clothe them and feed, and provide houses and gardens, and every human vegetated form in its inward recesses is a house of pleasantness and a garden of delight, built by the sons and daughters of Los in Baulahula and in Cathedron. From London to York and Edinburgh the furnaces rage terrible. Primrose Hill is the mouth of the furnace and the iron door. The four Zoas clouded rage. Urizen stood by Albion with Rintra and Palamabron, and Theotomon and Bromion. These four are Verulam and London and York and Edinburgh. And the four Zoas are Urizen and Louva and Tharmas and Othona, in opposition deadly, and their wheels in poisonous and deadly stupor turned against each other, loud and fierce, entering into the reasoning power. Forsaking imagination, they became spectres, and their human bodies were opposed in Beulah by the daughters of Beulah with tears and lamentations. The spectre is the reasoning power in man, and when separated from imagination and closing itself as in steel in a ratio of the things of memory, it thence frames laws and moralities to destroy imagination, the divine body, by martyrdoms and wars. Oh, teach me, O Holy Spirit, the testimony of Jesus. Let me comprehend wondrous things out of the divine law. I behold Babylon in the opening streets of London. I behold Jerusalem in ruins, wandering about from house to house. This I behold, the shudderings of death attend my steps. I walk up and down in 6,000 years. Their events are present before me, to tell how Los, in grief and anger, whirling round his hammer on high, drave the sons and daughters of Albion from their ancient mountains. They became the 12 gods of Asia, opposing the divine vision. The sons of Albion are 12, the sons of Jerusalem 16. I tell how Albion's sons, by harmonies of concords and discords opposed to melody, and by lights and shades opposed to outline, and by abstraction opposed to the visions of imagination, by cruel laws divided 16 into 12 divisions. How Hyle roofed Los in Albion's cliffs, by the affections rent asunder, and opposed to thought, to draw Jerusalem's sons into the vortex of his wheels. Therefore Hyle is called Gog, age after age, drawing them away towards Babylon. Babylon, the rational morality, deluding to death the little ones in strong temptations of stolen beauty. I tell how Reuben slept on London stone, and the daughters of Albion ran around admiring his awful beauty. With moral virtue, the fair deceiver, offspring of good and evil, they divided him in love upon the Thames, and sent him over Europe in streams of gore out of Cathedron's looms. How Los drave them from Albion, and they became daughters of Canaan. Hence Albion was called the Canaanite, and all his giant sons. Hence is my theme. O Lord, my Saviour, open thou the gates, and I will lead forth thy words, telling how the daughters cut the fibres of Reuben, how he rolled apart and took root in Bashan. Terror-struck, Albion's sons look towards Bashan. They have divided Simeon. He also rolled apart in blood over the nations till he took root beneath the shining looms of Albion's daughters in Philistia by the side of Amalek. They have divided Levi. He has shot out into 48 roots over the land of Canaan. They have divided Judah. He hath took root in Hebron, in the land of Hand and Hyle. Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Issachar, Zebulun roll apart from all the nations of the earth to dissipate into non-entity. I see a feminine form arise from the 4 terrible Zoas, beautiful but terrible, struggling to take a form of beauty, rooted in Shechem. This is Dinah, the youthful form of Erin. The wound I see in South Moulton Street and Stratford Place, whence Joseph and Benjamin rolled apart away from the nations. In vain they roll apart. They are fixed into the land of Kabul. And Rahab, Babylon the Great, hath destroyed Jerusalem. Bath stood upon the 7 with Merlin and Bladud and Arthur, the cup of Rahab in his hand, her poisons 27-fold, and all her 27 heavens, now hid and now revealed, appear in strong delusive light of time and space, drawn out in shadowy pomp by the eternal prophet created evermore. For Los in 6,000 years walks up and down continually, that not one moment of time be lost, and every revolution of space he makes permanent in Bowler, Hula, and Cathedron. And these the names of the 27 heavens and their churches: Adam, Seth, Enos, Canaan, Mahalaleel, Jared, Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech. These are the giants mighty, hermaphroditic: Noah, Shem, Arphaxad, Canaan the second, Salah, Heber, Peleg, Reu, Serug, Nahor, Terah. These are the female males, a male within a female hid, as in an ark and curtains. Abraham, Moses, Solomon, Paul, Constantine, Charlemagne, Luther. These 7 are the male females, the dragon forms, the female hid within a male. Thus Rahab is revealed, mystery, Babylon the Great, the abomination of desolation, religion hid in war, a dragon red and hidden harlot. But Jesus, breaking through the central zones of death and hell, opens eternity in time and space, triumphant in mercy. Thus are the heavens formed by Los within the mundane shell. And where Luther ends, Adam begins again in eternal circle to awake the prisoners of death, to bring Albion again with Luther into light eternal in his eternal day. But now the starry heavens are fled from the mighty limbs of Albion. Here ends Chapter 3 and Part 6 of Jerusalem, the Emanation of the Giant Albion by William Blake.